Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. Maybe you should just put back what you can't afford. The words hung in the air as the young mother's face flushed crimson. The grocery store fell silent, shoppers suddenly finding their phones fascinating, all except for the man in the baseball cap at the back of the line. Her trembling fingers counted the crumpled bills again, while her daughter clutched a small carton of milk and a chocolate bar, eyes wide with confusion. The checkout girl shifted uncomfortably, forced smile barely concealing her embarrassment. "I'm sorry, ma'am, store policy," she mumbled, avoiding eye contact. The line behind them grew restless, sighs and eye rolls rippling through the Friday evening crowd. A businessman checked his watch theatrically, while a teenager snickered to her friend. Nobody wanted to be part of this moment, yet nobody could look away. The mother began returning items, first the fruit, then bread, finally reaching for her daughter's chocolate. The little girl's lip quivered as she reluctantly surrendered her treat. That's when movement came from the back of the line, a tall figure stepping forward, baseball cap low over his eyes, but not low enough to hide a face that had graced movie screens worldwide. Leonardo DiCaprio had been watching silently, and now he was done watching. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. The mother hadn't noticed him yet. Her world had narrowed to the mortifying arithmetic of poverty, performed under the fluorescent spotlight of public scrutiny. Her dark hair fell forward, shielding tear-brimmed eyes as she fumbled with her wallet. Her work uniform, a pale blue polyester shirt with a coffee shop logo, told its own story of long hours and minimum wage. The daughter, no more than 6, wore slightly too small sneakers with cartoon characters whose sparkles had long since faded, one shoelace double-knotted where it had broken and been tied together. DiCaprio moved with the casual confidence of someone used to commanding rooms much larger than this suburban grocery store. He wore nothing flashy, just jeans, a dark hoodie, and that low-pulled baseball cap, his preferred armor against recognition. Yet something in his posture shifted as he approached, the way it did when the cameras rolled, inhabiting a new character, not the Hollywood icon, but the unexpected ally. Around him, recognition dawned across faces, widened eyes, nudged elbows, hastily raised phones. The whispers began rippling through the checkout line, adding another layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. The checkout girl recognized him first, her monotonous evening suddenly electrified. Her scanner froze mid-beep, mouth slightly open, professional demeanor momentarily shattered. The businessman behind her stopped his theatrical sighing, suddenly finding his impatience inappropriate in the presence of an Oscar winner. The teenage girls who had been snickering now fumbled frantically with their phones, trying to position themselves for the perfect background selfie. Their previous disdain for the struggling mother vanished, replaced by the intoxicating proximity to fame. "Excuse me," DiCaprio said, his voice gentler than his screen persona yet carrying that same magnetic quality. The mother didn't look up immediately, assuming he was addressing someone else. Her shoulders remained hunched, a defensive posture honed through too many public humiliations. Her daughter, however, stared openly at the stranger with that unfiltered curiosity unique to children. The little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering something that finally made the woman raise her head. Her expression cycled rapidly through confusion, recognition, and embarrassment, a vulnerable tableau beneath the harsh store lighting. The atmosphere in the checkout line crystallized into something extraordinary. The mundane grocery store transformed into an impromptu stage where status, wealth, and basic humanity converged. Customers who moments ago had been absorbed in their own worlds now became audience members, witnesses to whatever would unfold next. Some pretended casual disinterest while positioning phone cameras. Others stared openly, social protocols suspended by celebrity presence. The store manager materialized from nowhere, hovering nervously at the edge of the growing scene, uncertain whether to intervene. DiCaprio stood beside the mother now, close enough that the contrast between them became visually striking. His casual clothes likely cost more than her monthly rent. His watch worth more than her car. Yet in his eyes was something that transcended this financial chasm. A quiet understanding, perhaps recognition of the arbitrary nature of fortune. The little girl looked up at him with unabashed fascination, still clutching her mother's hand. The chocolate bar lay abandoned on the counter, a small sacrifice that had suddenly become the centerpiece of a moment none of them had anticipated when entering the store. The checkout girl waited, scanner suspended, as the invisible social hierarchy of the grocery store rearranged itself around this unexpected collision of worlds. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. "I'd like to take care of this," DiCaprio said, voice pitched low but carrying through the now hushed checkout area. The statement, simple, direct, without fanfare, landed with quiet impact. He wasn't performing for the growing audience. His attention remained focused entirely on the mother and child before him. The woman's expression cycled through disbelief, embarrassment, and reluctance, a visible internal struggle between dignity and necessity playing across her features. "That's very kind, but we're fine," she managed, though the evidence of her empty wallet contradicted her words. Her accent carried traces of somewhere else, a journey untold. Her hand rested protectively on her daughter's shoulder, stance slightly defensive, the instinct of someone accustomed to life's harder edges. The little girl looked between the adults, sensing the tension without understanding its source. "Really, it's nothing," DiCaprio insisted, somehow making the gesture seem ordinary rather than extraordinary. Other celebrities might have turned this into a performance. Cameras called, publicists alerted. His approach had a different quality, the quiet assurance of someone who understood that true generosity required no audience. The checkout girl remained frozen, scanner hovering, caught between store protocol and the unprecedented situation unfolding at her register. "Sir, I can get my manager to—" she began, but DiCaprio shook his head slightly. "No need to make this complicated," he said, sliding his card across the counter with a casualness that belied the mounting tension. The transaction itself would be simple. It was everything surrounding it: the public witnessing, the status implications, the mother's pride, that created the emotional complexity charging the air around them. The mother's resistance began to crumble, not from the celebrity factor, she seemed almost immune to that, but from the simple human kindness behind the gesture. Still, years of self-reliance made surrender difficult. "We don't need charity," she said softly, though her eyes betrayed gratitude fighting with pride. Her daughter tugged at her sleeve again, whispering something that made her expression soften momentarily. "It's not charity," DiCaprio replied, his tone conversational, as though they were old friends discussing something mundane. "Think of it as paying forward some good luck." There was something in his delivery, the understated sincerity perhaps, that made the statement sound genuine rather than rehearsed. People who had been recording discreetly on their phones edged closer, hungry for every word of this unexpected encounter. The store manager finally approached, recognition widening his eyes as he realized who was standing at checkout 3. "Mr. DiCaprio, it's an honor to have you in our store. If there's any issue—" "No issue," DiCaprio interrupted smoothly. "Just helping a neighbor with groceries." The word neighbor hung in the air, significant in its simplicity. Not this woman or her, but neighbor, with all its implications of community and shared humanity. The businessman who had been checking his watch earlier shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how his impatience might appear in this new context. The teenage girls had stopped giggling, their expressions now thoughtful as they watched the interaction unfold. Something in the atmosphere had changed, the initial voyeuristic excitement giving way to something more reflective. The little girl, sensing the emotional currents swirling around her but interpreting them through a child's perspective, finally spoke up. "Are you the man from that ship movie?" Her voice, high and clear, cut through the tension. A ripple of gentle laughter moved through the onlookers, easing the intensity that had built. DiCaprio's face softened with genuine amusement. "I was," he acknowledged, crouching slightly to meet her eye level, the instinctive gesture of someone comfortable with children. "That was a long time ago. My mom cries every time the ship sinks," the girl announced with the unfiltered honesty of childhood, prompting her mother's face to flush with embarrassment. DiCaprio laughed. Not his polished interview laugh, but something more authentic that reached his eyes. "Honey, please," the mother whispered, mortification battling with the absurdity of discussing tearjerker movie moments with their star in a grocery checkout line. But something about the exchange had shifted the dynamic, humanized all parties. The mother's rigid posture relaxed slightly, her defenses lowering incrementally. The checkout girl, seizing the moment of levity, quietly began scanning the previously abandoned items, the fruit, the bread, the chocolate bar, returning them to the order. Her earlier discomfort had transformed into quiet determination to be part of the solution rather than the problem. The mother noticed but said nothing, a silent acknowledgement passing between the women. "Your total is $78.43, the checkout girl finally announced, directing the information to no one in particular, leaving open the question of who would respond. A momentary stillness fell over the scene, the pivotal moment where intention would transform into action. Phones recorded silently, capturing what was becoming less a celebrity sighting and more a moment of unexpected community. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk. Without hesitation, DiCaprio handed his card to the checkout girl. The transaction, mundane in any other context, felt ceremonial now, witnessed by the growing crowd. As the machine processed the payment, a subtle transformation was occurring throughout the store. Customers who had been irritated by the delay now watched with something like reverence. The previously impatient businessman slipped his phone into his pocket, no longer checking the time. The teenagers who had been positioning for selfies lowered their phones, their expressions thoughtful rather than excited. "Thank you," the mother said simply, the words clearly difficult for her. Her eyes met DiCaprio's directly for the first time, a moment of genuine human connection amid the artificial store lighting and curious onlookers. In her gaze was not the starstruck admiration of a fan, but the complex gratitude of one person to another who had preserved her dignity while meeting her need. "You know what this reminds me of?" DiCaprio said, speaking quietly as the receipt printed. "When I was a kid, before anything happened with my career, my mom and I were in a situation not so different from this." The revelation, unexpected and unverifiable to the onlookers, seemed offered not for public consumption but as a private bridge of understanding between himself and the mother. Whether strictly true or slightly embellished for the moment, the effect was the same: a humanizing of the Hollywood icon, a collapsing of the perceived distance between their lives. The mother's expression shifted as she processed his words, surprise replacing embarrassment. "Really?" she asked, skepticism edging her voice. Celebrities claiming humble beginnings was a common narrative, often more marketing than truth. "Really?" DiCaprio confirmed, something in his tone convincing beyond the word itself. Single mom, tight budget. I remember the calculations. What stays, what goes back on the shelf. He helped the checkout girl place groceries into bags. A small action that further dissolved the invisible barrier between celebrity and ordinary person. The difference was just luck. That's all it ever is. The little girl watched the adults, then reached for her chocolate bar with newfound confidence. "Can I still have this, Mom?" she asked, the innocent question carrying the weight of so many larger concerns. Wants versus needs. Pride versus practicality. "Yes, sweetheart," her mother answered, emotion making her voice slightly hoarse. Something unspoken passed between her and DiCaprio, an acknowledgement that the chocolate bar was more than just candy. It was childhood itself, the small joy that shouldn't be a luxury. A woman, toward the back of the line, stepped forward suddenly. "I'd like to pay for the person behind me," she announced to the adjacent cashier, voice slightly tremulous but determined. The declaration created a ripple effect. A man at another register made the same offer, then another customer. The spontaneous chain reaction spread through the checkout area, transforming the atmosphere from voyeuristic to participatory. The store manager, witnessing this cascade of generosity spreading through his checkout lanes, stood momentarily paralyzed. This wasn't covered in any corporate training manual. Then, making a decision that transcended protocol, he approached the intercom. "Attention shoppers," his voice echoed through the store, slightly nervous but gaining confidence. "For the next 30 minutes, the store will match any pay-it-forward purchase at the registers." He'd probably have to justify this to corporate later, but in this moment, it felt undeniably right. DiCaprio smiled, not his red carpet smile, but something more genuine, as he helped the mother gather her bags. The woman who had initially been shrinking from attention now stood straighter, her embarrassment replaced by something like quiet dignity. Her eyes swept the store, taking in the changed atmosphere, the spontaneous community that had formed around what began as her moment of humiliation. "I don't know how to," she began, but DiCaprio shook his head slightly. "Just remember it," he said quietly. "That's how this works. We remember, and we pass it on when we can." The simplicity of the statement carried more impact than any grand speech could have. It wasn't about charity or celebrity. It was about the fundamental connection between people that transcended status and circumstance. The little girl, understanding more than the adults might have given her credit for, suddenly offered her chocolate bar to DiCaprio. "You can have half," she said solemnly, the offer representing perhaps her most valuable possession in that moment. "It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it." The offer, innocent and profound, momentarily silenced everyone who witnessed it. DiCaprio knelt to the child's level, treating the chocolate exchange with the seriousness it deserved. "That's very kind," he said, accepting half with ceremonial gravity before returning her smile. "This might be the best deal I've made all year." The girl beamed, understanding she had participated in something important, even if she couldn't articulate precisely what. As mother and daughter headed toward the exit, grocery bags in hand, the crowd parted naturally, creating a path. There was no applause. That would have cheapened the moment, but faces reflected something more valuable. Thoughtfulness, reconsideration, quiet respect. The mother carried herself differently now, her earlier shame transformed into something resembling peace. At the door, she turned back briefly, meeting DiCaprio's eyes one last time. A silent thank you that acknowledged a debt that could never be repaid directly, only passed forward. DiCaprio declined photos with the now eager fans, politely explaining he needed to finish his shopping. His refusal transformed what might have become a celebrity circus back into a grocery store, albeit one where the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. As he moved through the aisles, completing his original errand, other shoppers gave him space, the respect less about his fame now and more about what they had witnessed. The pay-it-forward chain continued at the registers for over an hour, long after DiCaprio had quietly exited through the side door. The store manager later reported that 47 customers participated, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the original encounter. Checkout staff described it as the most meaningful shift of their careers. The mundane retail environment temporarily elevated into something extraordinary. By morning, shaky cell phone videos had begun circulating online. Unlike most viral celebrity content, the comment sections filled with stories of similar moments: financial struggles, unexpected kindness, the complicated emotions of receiving help. The focus wasn't on DiCaprio's presence, but on the universal experience he had illuminated: the arbitrary nature of fortune and the transformative power of dignity preserved through genuine connection. DiCaprio never commented publicly on the incident. No press release followed, no charitable foundation announcement leveraged the moment. His silence allowed the story to belong to everyone who experienced it, directly or through its retelling, rather than becoming another carefully managed celebrity narrative. This absence of official spin preserved the authenticity that had made the moment powerful in the first place. 2 weeks later, a small envelope arrived at DiCaprio's production office. Inside was a child's drawing of 2 stick figures sharing what appeared to be a brown rectangle, likely the chocolate bar. Beneath it, in careful adult handwriting, "We remembered. Today we paid for someone's coffee when they came up short. She cried. We understand now. Thank you." No signature, no return address, just the evidence of a lesson received and passed forward. The true reach of that grocery store moment could never be measured. How many witnesses carried its impact into their own lives? How many viewers of the viral video were moved to similar actions? How many people benefited from the quiet ripple effect of reconsidered assumptions about worth, dignity, and the arbitrary nature of fortune? Some transformations cannot be quantified, only felt, spreading outward like light. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think. You'll help us grow if you'll subscribe and get notifications on. And don't stop here. Click one of the videos on your screen and keep the journey going. See you in the next one.